Aliens Explored is a podcast exploring famous and obscure cases of UFO sightings, alien abductions and other strange events from both a believing and a sceptical perspective whilst keeping an open mind. I'm Stu Jackson, a professional actor and amateur ufologist with a particular interest in the crop circle phenomenon. I'll be debating that otherworldly visitations are real. The truth is out there.
And I'm Neil Kelly. I'm a professional actor as well and used to work for the military as an intelligence analyst. I'll be arguing from a more doubtful point of view. I mean, it's all a bit far-fetched, isn't it?
Last week we met Marcus Churchill, who has been telling us about his role in the new 6-part documentary series for Discovery Plus entitled Roswell, The Final Verdict. Predictably, we ran out of time, what with it being such a hot topic, so join us again this week for part 2 of our interview with Marcus Churchill on Aliens Explored.
Welcome back, listeners, to part 2 of our very special interview with Marcus Churchill here on Aliens Explored. I'm one of your hosts, Stu Jackson.
And I'm your other host, Neil Kelly.
Welcome back, Neil. So excited for the second half of the interview. I mean, I keep mentioning like what a lovely chap Marcus is, and is very kind to sort of give up his time.
My opinion about him hasn't changed in the course of the week, so
no, excellent,
lovely time.
Excellent. And yeah, he's going to be coming up with some more interesting behind the scenes talk about Roswell, the final verdict, which you can catch on Discovery Plus if you're in America. We can't catch it.
And via other means if you're somewhere else, but we will keep you posted on wherever this whenever this series is available as we go on. So keep checking in our website.
Oh yes, absolutely. I mean, I for one, I'm not a fan of less official means of watching stuff, I'll be honest.
We won't be selling any bootlegs. That's the
no.
Let's just say that right
now. But yeah, so keep an eye, because if you're in the UK, it will become available. I'm confident of that. In fact, we talk about that as part of this show. So listening for where you can hear it and when. But yeah, it's... should we just dive straight back into the interview?
Let's do that.
Yeah, picking up from where we left off last time. In light of the way that we've sort of changed our perception of things and the way that we monitor things and record things, I know you mentioned about the AI, we'll call it a lie detector, being used in the show. Is there anything else in this documentary that we might not have heard of before, or that has come to light specifically for this documentary, or would that be giving away too much?
No, I don't think there's anything that the Roswell sort of experts would not be aware of. They do seem to go through every testimony they can find. Like I say, there's testimonies from people who live next door to someone, and things like that. They've found as much footage as they can to analyse. But they do. I mean, it's a 6-part series, 6-hour-long episodes. So they absolutely go to town. They pick everything apart they possibly can, and try and do it in a chronological order as well, day by day, which helps keep track on what's happening. I don't think there's anything new. I think that the selling point is the AI sort of. I'm going to keep calling it a lie detector because there's nothing else I can call it. I think that's why they've decided.
Well, it probably is.
That's why they've decided this is the final verdict, because in that true sort of Jeremy Kyle fashion, if it's the lie detector says true or false, that's exactly what it has to be. And all the Roswell and UFO and intelligence experts that have been interviewed, just go with it. They go with it. So if somebody says this is true, and they're like, it's true. Oh my God! But the voiceover is very keen to point out it's the AI, alleges it's true. At no point does it say this is definitely true, but the experts. This is where I sort of say this is possibly where it's sort of weighted towards proving it happened, because the experts are very pro believer, if you know what I mean, want of a better expression. I'm probably going to get in so much trouble for saying all this, but
because we did wonder. I mean, no doubt you heard about the $3-point-something trillion COVID relief bill that was ordered in the last days of the Trump administration, which had this clause that said that all the government agencies had to release all the information they had about UFOs, and we were wondering, well, if there was any new information as a result of this data dump that made its way into your documentary series.
I'm not aware.
If it was just too soon for this.
I'm not aware there was. I mean, we did the filming back in February, which is not that long ago.
Right.
But when they did all the interviews, I think they'd already happened because they were in our sort of shooting script, as it were. They had all the verbatim dialogue from the experts and voiceovers and things like that. But when they filmed them, I think they filmed them last year. And I cannot for the life of me remember when Trump got finally voted out of the White House. I can't remember when that was. It was last year sometime, though, wasn't it? So it may have happened a bit too soon.
It was November last year.
It may have been a bit too soon. I suspect they may well have filmed them all before that happened. So. But it's interesting. It's an interesting point, with everything. If the government has to release all these things on UFOs, very odd thing to put into an outgoing sort of order. Is to, by the way, I'm going, but by the way, just tell everyone about UFOs, will you? It's a very odd thing to put in.
Yeah, it's. We just wondered if someone just slipped that in, maybe hoping it wouldn't get noticed, or this is my.
But it's law now. So
perhaps it was an attempt to derail the bill because he knew that the next administration was going to take I mean, he'd already lost the election, or had it stolen from him, if some of our listeners are
I'm not sure he's convinced he's lost it yet.
By the time this bill went through... Oh, no, he's still not convinced he's lost it. He's still convinced it was stolen. But I think the deadline for the release of this information was... When was it, Stu? Was it July of this year?
It was... That sounds about right.
Yeah, so it would have been after you'd finished shooting, but no doubt there will be people trawling through this information to see if there's anything in there which makes your final verdict maybe not quite the final verdict.
I'm not sure it will be the final one anyway. I think there's bound to be more. There's bound to be more, and it's interesting if they have released all this stuff. Would we have heard anything about Roswell by now if there was anything in there? Because it would be the sensational find, wouldn't it? If they could find some sort of information one way or the other. It'd be big news.
Well, the public declassification, we actually did a live episode on it, and there's was it 9 pages of nothing basically.
sounds very.
I mean, they skirt around a lot of issues.
Yeah, lots of jargon and lots of.
They do skirt around a lot of things. The classified version is allegedly about 50 odd pages long, so that's a different thing. But obviously, we don't have access to that. I've got a copy of it somewhere.
Those are the pages that said that Donald Trump was in touch with the Galactic Federation.
Well, of course, he's probably like a high
according to Hayam.
Yes.
No, according to Hayam Eshed, who is the now Neil can probably remember better than me, the Israeli.
He was an Israeli general who also became their top scientific or their top rocket scientist, basically.
Yes, he came out and said very publicly that Donald Trump. Well, that the governments of the world had been in touch with the Galactic Federation and that Donald Trump had been silenced from making it public.
Oh, you can't tell this, listeners, but my head is in my hands right now. Literally. Oh, it's ridiculous, isn't it? The things you can do in America are unbelievable.
It sounds it, but Hayam Eshed is a very, very credible person. It sounds astounding. But it's worth looking into. Well worth looking
into. Again, that throws back to Jesse Marcel, because he's a very credible person as well, and he's said basically the same sort of thing, if you know what I mean. There's definitely an alien spaceship that's landed, so who knows?
Yeah. This wasn't on our list of questions, but did Jesse Marcel suffer personally as a result of what he might have thought had happened or what he was prepared to say had happened? Did the men in black turn up?
No, I don't think they did. What I do know,
shut him down.
As the account goes, he was summoned to see General Ramey, who was the big man on campus, and he thought he was going. This was his big moment. I mean, this was what was going to make his career. He's been summoned by the general to show all this alien debris off. This is going to be the making of him. He's going to be a big sort of famous man now. And he gets there, and just as they're about to go into the press conference, he gets stopped by General Ramey, and General Ramey says, "Don't say anything. Don't say a word when you get in there." Just throws him under the bus, literally seconds, just as he's about to walk through the door. So, and it's my favourite clip from the documentary because I walk into the scene, as it were, and there's lots of flash bulbs going off. And I'm playing Jesse Marcel as like, oh my God, my whole world has just fallen apart. And even I feel sorry for me. I don't often like what I do on the screen, but even I feel sorry for me. It's a beautiful bit of filming. The cameraman, Ollie, who was amazing, and it looks really beautiful. You really feel sorry for him. It brings it to life really nicely. But I think once he'd been sort of silenced, and he had to pose for the famous photos as well of him holding up the weather balloon. With a big fake smile on his face, which is quite a famous photo. So we recreate that in the documentary as well. At one point, they actually sort of crossfade from me in position to the original photo, which is a really lovely moment, actually. But once all that had sort of happened, and he'd been silenced, they promoted him. Instead of sort of shoving him aside and telling him to keep quiet, they promoted him and sent him off to Washington to work. I think, as you said, on the nuclear program. Which I think was more, rather than a reward for being quiet, I think that was trying to keep him sweet or keep your enemies closer, if you know what I mean. I don't think that was he quite earned it. I think they were just trying to sweeten him up a bit and keep him as close as possible because he was a career army man. Do you know what I mean? He was a soldier his entire life. And that's all I'm aware that happened because obviously once he'd retired, that's when he sort of started talking. Once he'd left the army, that's when it sort of he came to light. I know he did the big famous interviews in 1972, I think, which is obviously a long time after he retired. Yes. But that's all I'm aware of. I don't think he had any visits from Men in Black or anything like that. Although they do feature heavily in the documentary as well. The Men in Black, they're quite a prominent feature. Yeah. Right. There's two men in suits that.
Ooh, something to look for.
Who in real life were lovely guys actually, but obviously in the documentary they're supposed to look very mean and menacing.
Excellent. Now, I mean, obviously, that aspect of the documentary is going to be, let's say, dramatization, and it sounds like there are certainly elements of it that have been speculated upon. How much of the entire documentary, like, if you were to give a sort of ballpark percentage, how much of it do you think is speculation, and how much of it is based on actual facts?
To give an actual figure, I think is difficult because a lot of the reconstructions have been reconstructed from the first-hand accounts and reports and things like that. So, as far from a filmmaking perspective, it's all real, if you know what I mean, because it's taken from these first-hand accounts. But obviously, these first-hand accounts may have been embellished, may have been, for want of a better term, sexed up a little bit to make them sound a bit more interesting. I honestly couldn't say whether that's the case or not. But everything has been reconstructed from the original first-hand accounts. And obviously, it has to be made. We all know TV. There's always a little bit of sexing up anyway because it has to be appealing to the viewer. The biggest problem we faced actually is that. It's still set in the searing heat of the New Mexico desert, but we filmed it in North Norfolk in February, where it was absolutely freezing cold, which was a challenge because you can't breathe because you've got all this misted breath everywhere. But that was a bit of a challenge, and it was in the middle of lockdown as well, so everyone's got really long hair, which was also not that accurate for the military because you can have a haircut for months because we're in that sort of second lockdown after Christmas. So that's really that's the only real sort of problem with it. I think everything else should be relatively accurate. I mean, you can see they reconstruct alien autopsies. They've got aliens that are being cut up and things like that, which have been based on first-hand accounts and possibly, and I'm not saying they have, but they might have been slightly influenced by the fake alien autopsy stuff that came out in 91. I can't remember the name of the guy who did it. But they interview him, or they use an interview by him in the show as well. But I think he admitted that was all reconstructed.
Ray
anyway, didn't they?
Santilli.
But based on the original film.
But the Ray
That's it,
Santilli
yeah.
stuff was kind of it was a recreation in of itself. He later admitted from footage that he had
That's right,
witnessed personally. Is
Yes.
the claim.
So I think
it's all very muddy waters.
Yeah. I think the reconstructions they do in the documentary are possibly influenced by that a little bit. But again, it's for TV, so you've got to make it that sort of bit more interesting. If it's just a bloke wearing a big old hazmat suit and you can't see his face, it's not as visually interesting as seeing someone cutting into an alien body with this look of disgust. You have to have that sort of cinematic element to it. So I'm sure there's been a bit of sexing up to the reconstructions, but generally they're all based on the first-hand accounts.
Excellent. I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Yeah, me too. So yes, it's the movies or the series is being released on Discovery Plus. Will it be available in the which will be available to American viewers? Will it be available in the UK?
I mean, I hope so. I mean, there are certain ways you can view it anyway. I mean, I would like to think that at some point it will
legal ways.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, no, I wouldn't condone watching it or anything like that, because that's certainly not the way I watched it at all. But I think I would like to think it will filter its way down to sort of regular Discovery, or because originally it was supposed to be on Discovery ID, which you can get in this country. And for some reason, I think they've used it to sort of help boost the new Discovery Plus channel. I would like to think that will sort of filter down to one of the mainstream Discovery channels at some point. I mean, I know people that have watched it in this country via Discovery Plus. How they did that, I have no idea. Apparently, you can get a subscription if you're a Sky customer, but I've not attempted to even look at that at all. So it is around, and it is definitely worth a watch if you can find a way to watch it in a legal way, obviously.
Well, we'll keep our ears to the ground, and we'll announce it on our podcast whenever we find out that it's become available.
Yes, I'll keep my ear to the ground. If anything, if I see anything, I'll let you guys know. Definitely.
Please do. Yeah,
very much. I'm really mad keen to see it. How about you, Neil?
Yeah, I'm very interested to see it.
As our naysayer.
As our naysayer, but this is reconstruct. As you said, there might be a little bit of speculation, a little bit of sexing up, but generally, it's a blow by blow account based on available records.
It's all verbatim. It's all based on first and second hand accounts. So it's about as accurate as they're going to get, I think.
Yeah, it's almost like these crime series where they will show the investigation of a crime, and that's far more interesting than a Hollywood maverick who can't solve the crime until he's been told to hand over his gun and his badge, and he's got 48 hours to crack the case or whatever, the standard stuff. But actually, you watch a real investigation. That's a lot more interesting.
I mean, me and my wife are addicted to 24 hours in police custody. We love it. Totally, it's not alien related, but just on your point, we love it because you're watching real things happening in real time. It's brilliant.
You're watching real professionals acting professionally.
They just want to get the job done.
Yeah. It's never personal, or not that personal. It's not career-ending personal. Yeah,
that's it. Now, speaking of personal, I mean, Marcus, thank you so much for coming on and talking to us about Roswell: The Final Verdict. Kind of a quick question: did you enjoy doing it?
It was brilliant fun. I mean, it was. Let's say it was very cold. It was very cold. I mean, there's one scene where I'm lying around a campfire. Again, supposed to be in the New Mexico desert at night, but it was literally like 5 below zero or something like that, and I'm lying on a wet, damp ground wearing nothing but a denim jacket and some like golf slacks or something like that. And that was bloody freezing. I've got to be honest. I literally had to concentrate to stop my teeth from chattering. But it was brilliant fun. Most of it was filmed at a former RAF base in Scotto in North Norfolk, and a lot of it was filmed inside the former air traffic control tower. So it's all sort of derelict, but they obviously had the set dressers in the art department and made it they used the same corner of a room for like 4 or 5 different locations. Really, really clever stuff. And it was a nice atmosphere. Everyone was having a good time. And I think because of the time of year, and because we were sort of in semi-lockdown at the time, everyone was just happy to be working. I know I definitely was. Yes. It was nice to know that even though things aren't going quite so well for a lot of other actors, it was nice to know that everyone was there and sort of bonding. I mean, it was a COVID-friendly set as well, so everyone's wearing masks until they yell action. The mask goes. Everyone you see on screen has got a mask in their pocket somewhere, or put down their top.
Yeah.
There was a guy on set with a hand sanitizer. Whenever you finish the text, like sanitize. So it's it was an interesting experience from that point of view, but it was a lot of fun. It really was, and it was nice to sort of walk in the footsteps of someone who actually existed as well. Often as actors, we're just playing people that have been made up in the mind of someone else, but to actually play someone, and as it turned out, someone who was such an integral part of the whole story as well was it was really, really interesting, really good experience, and it, on a personal note, it paid for my new windows as well, so that was good. Which is always a bonus. It made me very popular with my wife as well, so that was that was good.
So, speaking of a window into your work,
very nice.
Wow, amazing!
It's a nice scene, very nice, very deftly done. Yeah.
How could listeners find your work? How can they follow you? Because you are, I mean, and I'm saying this like from a personal experience point of view, you are an amazing actor and really well worth following and watching. So where can people see your stuff?
Well, I have a Twitter page it's an acting Twitter page, which is Twitter at @m_Churchill24. That's me, and I post updates on there, and on Instagram as well. I'm on @real Marcus Churchill, which is really pretentious, but there are a couple of others on there. So I just wanted to make sure at some point, if I become, sort of well known, that I've got the profile already sorted. I'm not going to be some other guy from Swindon or something.
Well, we've got to think about these things in advance, but having spent 15 years living in Swindon, none taken.
Exactly. You never know. I may be a jobbing actor for the rest of my life, or I may end up, having a name that's relatively well known. You've got to prepare for these things. You never know what's around the corner. Well,
you certainly be well known after this.
So. That would be nice. That'd be really nice. Those are the two ways you can see me. I'll send you guys a couple of links as well if you want to put those on your site. That would be great. Just a couple of like work professional profiles, things like that, with acting work and stuff like that, show reels. That'd be great.
Yeah,
definitely.
And for all of our listeners who are fumbling for a pencil while you were giving your Twitter and Instagram accounts, they can pick it up from the site.
That'd be great.
Yes, I will put links in the description to your Twitter, to your Instagram, and to your other links that you send us afterwards. This has been absolutely amazing, Marcus. Thank you so much for coming in and chatting to us.
Thank you for
really interesting.
Brilliant.
Yeah, it's been a real pleasure to meet you for the first time for me. Yeah. I know you won't. And then I'll lose my job. It's my job to not believe.
So
every time Stu says the government are preparing us to meet the aliens, no, they're not.
Another tax rise.
That's my job. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, you take care, Marcus.
Yeah.
Right.
You too. Thanks, Marcus. Bye-bye. Well, fantastic interview there with Marcus Churchill on this documentary series, Roswell: The Final Verdict, which will be available by we'll keep it's on Discovery Plus. We'll keep you posted via our website as to all the other means by which viewers in other parts of the world outside the United States can watch it. So that's all we've got time for this week. We've reached the end of our interview. We've asked all our questions. We've met Marcus, lovely chap. You already knew him, of course, didn't you, Stu?
I do. I've had the pleasure of working with him on set. He's a lovely chap and a damn fine actor as well.
A damn fine actor. And is that what you're going to ask me this week about? Because you always say, so what do you think, Neil? Well, actually, I reserve judgment.
Yeah, funny enough. I'm going to ask... So obviously Roswell is a very, very famous incident. I'm curious to know if our chat with Marcus and the sort of things he was saying, like certainly how it shifted his perspective on the whole incident. Did talking to Marcus shift your perspective of Roswell at all, or?
I don't think so. It's just one of those mysterious things that something happened involving a secret US base, and the information that's come out about it has been patchy and contradictory, and has ignited all sorts of conspiracy theories. Some of them reasonable, some of them not so reasonable. So it's just one of these things. I really don't know.
That's fair enough. An open mind is really important. I would say a mind's like a parachute. If it's not open, it's not working.
And it will get you into big trouble.
Oh, it certainly will. Well, yeah, I'm certainly. I'm just so keen to see this now, because I want to see this AI with the facial facial recognition stuff. Yeah, I want to see how that impacts things.
Yeah, I have to admit, I was skeptical when Marcus mentioned that, because, for instance, if you watch a film or a TV series that's set, say, in the 1960s or in the 1950s, you know that what you're watching are 21st century people acting in the role, and they speak like 21st century people, even if they're saying lines that were written in the 50s or the 60s. They have the mannerisms and the way of speaking of 21st century people. When you actually watch something made in the 50s or the 60s, the people are different in all sorts of subtle ways. You can tell that something is old just by the way people are. So I wondered if AI technology to determine the veracity of what someone's saying would have been tested on 21st century people, and then they would attempt to apply it to people from 50 years previously, and well, in the case of Roswell, 74 years previously. So I have to wonder how much of a reading you can get from someone across all those years.
No, I think that's a very valid point. And where does sort of camera resolution, how far do you push those limits? How much can actually be picked up? We talk about micro expressions, and particularly as actors, if we're doing a subtle performance, we have these micro expressions.
If you're doing a spaghetti western where the camera's right in your face, it's just your eye on the screen.
But even then, when it was like 9-inch screens, black and white, fuzzy as anything. Even micro expressions would have been missed. So, I'm really keen to see this.
But ultimately, all they could determine was that, even assuming that it worked perfectly well and very accurately, all they could make a judgment about was whether the person who was speaking was convinced that they were telling the truth, or whether the person who was speaking was deliberately misleading.
Yes, because truth is a very subjective thing. And just because someone isn't lying doesn't make their account accurate necessarily.
No,
I think that's a very, very, very valid point. But you know what? I'm going to say, as I always say, what do you think, listeners? Have you seen Roswell, the Final Verdict? And an awful lot of our listeners are in America. So if you've seen it, do write in. Let us know what you thought of it. Let us know what you thought of Marcus's performance. I will pass on the comments to him. I'm sure he'll appreciate them. But more importantly, what did you think about the documentary itself and its approach and this AI thing? We want to hear, because we've not seen it and it's really frustrating. So we want to live vicariously through you, listeners. Do write in. Let us know what you think of Roswell, the Final Verdict, if you've seen it on Discovery Plus. You can get in touch via the usual means, through Facebook, through Twitter. You can email us at aliensexplored@gmail.com. All the links are in the description, as are the links that Marcus mentions as well for his stuff, so you can give him a cheeky follow as well. That's about it for this time. Neil.
So what's coming up next? It's Well, we've got an exciting one.
We're staying. We've always got an exciting one. We've
this will be neither more nor less exciting than all of our previous.
Do you know what? I'm going to go out on a limb here and say I think this is perhaps a little bit more exciting than what we normally do. Not as exciting as talking to Marcus, perhaps, but very exciting nonetheless. We're going to be talking about the 1952 Washington, D.C. UFO incident. It's one of those things, if you know about it, you'll know how major it was. But, of course, not many people know about it. So we'll be finding out.
And it was a long time ago.
It was a long time ago. It was nearly 70 years ago. But pretty major nonetheless. So we'll be going into some detail on that next week.
Looking forward to it.
Don't miss it. In the meantime, keep watching all these documentaries. Keep watching the skies as well. Take care. That's all from me.
Catch you next time. Bye-bye.
Aliens Explored is a Figo Films production in association with Juicy Falls. Music by Darren Mafucci and editing by Stu Jackson. Find us on Twitter and Facebook by searching Aliens Explored or visit aliensexplored.com.